for all of our marhumin, marhumat, all Muslimin, Muslimat, those who are present with us and those who passed on, and those who've given everything for the cause of Islam. Recite Surah Fatiha, ma'afdal salawat.
Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد.
ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل البيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين اتولى بمقدمه الفداء الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد. For the love of Muhammad Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein, said Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, salamu alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah.
We've been discussing how to take our Iman to a different level, to a higher level, how to become successful mu'mineen. The first thing we wanted to examine is what is the definition of success. We had one in our mind, we wanted to break it down to see, does the Quran have its own definition? In Arabic, was there a definition which we examined yesterday? And then we came to this difference. We said that there's a difference between worldly success, material success, and then spiritual or ukhrawi success, right? There's a difference between being ahlul dunya, somebody who's worldly, somebody who's of this world, versus somebody who's ahlul akhirah, who's looking towards the next world. Being a short-term thinker versus being a long-term thinker. We gave some traits and mentioned a few things. We said that, listen, there's different ways to look at this problem. There's the typical things we've heard before, which, okay, don't love this world. What does that mean? That means don't be obsessed with things that are here, like money and power. Okay, that's obvious. We've heard it before. We said we're looking for a level of Iman beyond this kind of basic stuff we've heard. Okay, so we tried to go a bit deeper. We said, is there something else besides regular materialism that we know and heard? Yes. We said that there's something a bit deeper that turns into what we call practical materialism. And this advice mainly, we were addressing the parents that were here. Why? Because obviously, we wanted to address everyone. But since the majority of you here are parents, and we're trying to raise kids who are Husseini children, right? We're trying to raise Aliul Akbars, Aliul Asghars, Qasim, Aunts, Muhammads. That's what we're trying to raise. To do that, we have to make sure that they're raised the same way that they were raised by their parents. Meaning, if we're going to raise these individuals like Aliul Akbar, Aliul Asghar, and Abbas, etc., we have to give that kind of Husseini parenting which is necessary. Right? This is important. We said that according to one of the hadiths that the beginning of every sin and mistake is hubbud dunya. Okay, so what's this meaning? We brought two psychological studies that were done that show basically that anxiety, stress, and depression that people are facing, which this country has more so than any other country in the world right now, and we're being medicated more than any other country in the world. This is coming from where? One point that we mentioned is that it's not genetic, as was previously thought. That recent studies are showing that it's actually the children observing the way their parents react to stress and anxiety and depression, and they learn that behavior. So it's over here, it's nurture, not nature. Yeah, it's the environment which is telling them, how do I react when I get a flat tire? Well, my dad is freaking out, so then I have to freak out in the future, right? This learned behavior they're taking. We also said that there's other things based on the way that we try to raise them. We tell them, okay, get good grades. Why do I need good grades? So you can get to a good school. Okay, why Why do I need to get into a good school? So you can get a good job. Why do I need a good job? So you can get a lot of money. Why do you need a lot of money? Because the conclusion of all of these things is because that's how you lead a successful life. That's what a lot of us, unfortunately, are teaching our children. Yes, of course, we tell them to pray, we tell them to fast, we take them to Majalis, and that's good. And again, just to reiterate the point, we're not saying that making money and getting a good job and all this stuff is haram and bad. No, it is. But if that's the only thing our children are hearing from us, then what's going to happen is that practical materialism that's in our minds and hearts is going to transfer down to them. So that this same vicious cycle is going to conclude for however long. We gave the example yesterday of somebody who was caught between these two paths, of being between dunya and akhirah, was Umar ibn Sa'd. Think about it. Him being raised the way he was, him being a person then who was looking for control and money and power, he knew who Imam Hussein alayhi salam was. He understood Islam to a certain degree. He had a certain level of iman, we could say, right? Because according to some historians, he was hafid of Quran. Right? He prayed. It was all these things, the basic zahir, external stuff that we understand from what a Muslim and a mu'min should do. But something was missing in his heart. Or rather, something was in his heart that should have been there. What was it? Love of the world. That's because of the way that his outlook was. Right? The power, this world is what he wanted. We mentioned another study as well, which showed, and I don't want to go through everything, actually, it's a really interesting study. If anybody's interested, I can forward them the email. Basically, they were showing the difference between students who were entering college in the 60s and 70s versus now. And we had said that the difference was back then, what a person going into university was looking for in the 60s and 70s was to perfect themselves, to become better human beings, to change their philosophy about life, to be better. Whereas now, again, the only thing that's on people's mind, the majority of the time, is money. And that's a big problem. So what we should be encouraging our children to do is not get good grades, but think critically and learn. Be wise, question, these types of things. Of course, if you do that correctly, you should be able to get good grades in the process, obviously, right? But that's not the 100% goal. Because many of us who know how to take tests, I'm one of them, I know the ways, I can take a test, probably get an A on it, and I have no idea actually what I'm talking about, right? You cram for a test, you give the test, you're done. And you ask the person right after the test, what was the answer to this? I don't know. Right? I just memorized it, I gave the test, and I'm done. We don't want to raise test takers. Again, we're trying to raise people who are ready to be the companions of Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala. So not just with work, not just with school. We also mentioned that even when it comes to marriage, are we teaching our kids the qualities that they should be looking for in marriage that Islam has given us? Or are we telling them, look for somebody who has a good job? Right? Look for somebody who's, some other stuff, I don't want to mention that, but it's actually, I was going to say somebody who's good looking, but that actually is mentioned in our hadith that you should marry somebody who's good looking. So that's actually, it's good for us and it's Islamic, so that one you can actually look for. But money is something that's not mentioned there. The other thing is marry somebody with taqwa. Right? A lot of the times we tell our kids we don't allow them to get married. Why? It's too early for you. Don't get married now because you need to get a job first and do all that. But ask ourselves, is that what the Quran has said? I've never seen a verse yet that says, wait till you get a lot of risk. Once you do that, then you can marry off your children. We know this society, we know how it's working. The level of hijab and modesty here is much different than from the countries that we come from, right? So because of that, our kids, our youth are going to be affected. Before we could have said that, yes, when they got off to college, then it might become difficult for them. But I don't have to mention these things. Those who know what's going on know what's going on. Even now, not just high school, sometimes even middle school, kids are dating. I've even heard of elementary school at some points, right? Kids very young now are dating, they're getting involved. Gender integration is happening in our society. We have to deal with it. And if we think the way to deal with it is just to push people aside and just tell them, no, you're going to have to wait to get married, it's not going to be the best solution, right? We have to think of a better solution for that. And the solution that Islam prescribes is early marriage, as early as possible. Now, again, I don't want to make this a whole marriage seminar, but just one point. Obviously, money is important in taking care of a family. But the promise that Allah has said is that, listen, the minute you guys get married, I'm going to provide the risk. You don't have to worry about that. We'll take care of that. And you can ask anybody who's been in financial situations. Myself, I can say I was poor, but I was in a tough financial situation when I had gotten married. But ulama and other family members had advised me, listen, once you get married, you'll see what happens. And alhamdulillah, that's exactly what happened. Right? And it comes from different ways. Right? You just get that risk. Allah promises it to you. So if you have that belief in Allah's promise, then you'll get that risk. So don't let that hold you back. Don't let that hold you back personally from getting married, and be careful of holding back your children from getting married. I'm not saying going like sending out like your 9-year-olds. That's not what I'm encouraging, obviously. What I'm saying is sometimes people say wait till after college. This is a famous thing, right? Wait till after college, then get married. My humble advice is kids should go into college married. I could open this up. I don't want to. If anybody's interested, we can talk about it some other time. There's a good reason for that. And again, you know, it's because of what goes on in colleges. If a person's single and they go into college, it's going to be tough for them to refuse temptation there. Very tough. This is how the society is working on them. If they go in with a spouse, and the spouse is muttaqi, right? Muttadayin, they're religious, then they'll be taking care of each other. Even if they don't go to the same college, for example, at least this boy, this girl, they become halal for each other. They don't have to live together, right? They can still, do whatever they want, commute to school, live with their parents, whatever. But the fact is that they have somebody else to talk to, right, about their issues, et cetera, et cetera. Once in a while they meet, they get lunch. No, it doesn't have to be the minute you get married, now all of a sudden you have to go live together. No, there can be other ways of making things easier for our children to handle in this society. Sallu ala Muhammad wa I guarantee you, this is the one thing that I expect at least 2 or 3 uncles and aunties to come to me after the lecture today. So that's fine. Okay. There's some other points from the psychology study I wanted to mention. I'm going to leave it because I want to move on to our next point. Now, again, the point we mentioned last night before we ended was that, okay, you have this nice psychology study, what you're saying makes sense, but is this actually Islamic? This idea of anxiety and depression and stress coming from, loving the world? Like, where are you making that up from, right? Are you just pulling out some random stuff? Well, we actually do have a lot of this. I'll mention one hadith so that we can move on to our topic, but there's 2 narrations I found, although there's a lot, there's only 2 that I actually put over here. One is from the 4th Imam, and it's a very, very long narration. And there's a lot of interesting stuff there, but I'd love to just sit for 45 minutes to an hour. We could dissect it line by line. It's really beautiful. But I want to go through the kind of one-liner that comes from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He states this very, very simply. He says, "Ar-raghabu fi dunya tukathiru al-ham wal-huzn." Right? Having raghba, having desire and love for dunya, what does it do? It increases your ham and hazn, your worries, your troubles, your stress, your depression. It'll increase all that. Exactly what we've been saying. It's very clear in this hadith. And then he says, وَالزُّهْدُ فِي الدُّنْيَا يُرُوحُ الْقَلْبُ وَالْبَدَنِ. If your zuhd is kind of tough to translate, like they say aesthetic and all these kinds of things. Basically, you're not obsessed with the dunya, right? You're not obsessed. You're easygoing. If you're easygoing with the stuff that goes on in your life, then يُرِيحُ الْقَلْبُ وَالْبَدَنِ. Your mind, your body, your heart will be at ease, right? So this is what we were looking for. I just wanted to mention that so that people know that we do have proof for this in the hadith. 2 other points I want to mention, and then we'll move on to the next ayah of the verse of Surah Mu'minun. One thing is, okay, so we mentioned money, we mentioned marriage, we mentioned schooling and education. There's 2 other realms where sometimes this kind of practical materialism, this kind of worldly successful thinking seeps in. One comes into the way that we think about the way we run our centers. Meaning what? Okay. Most of the time when we want to find out, okay, was tonight's program successful? What'll be a typical response? Yes. Why was it successful? Because a lot of people came. There's a lot of people here. Or this time we had a lot of donations. Donations are good. I read these guys look at me like, what are you saying? No, donate to the center. Come to the center. A lot of people is good. Money being donated is good. But when that becomes your criteria for what's a good majlis, that can be slightly problematic, right? That being very materialistic, thinking of things quantitatively rather than qualitatively. Now imagine you get a packed, I don't want to say house, but yeah, whatever, packed Husseini Imam Barga, but the speaker is pretty terrible, right? For example, me. He's terrible, he says stuff, everybody's falling asleep, nobody's learning anything, he's saying stuff which is useless. He's saying just random garbage, right, on the member, ruining the reputation of the member. So even though everybody's there, right, and even though there's good, for example, matam and whatever, afterwards, what are the people learning? Nothing. Even though there's a lot there, was your quality in the majlis or not? One thing to think about. This idea of practical materialism also seeps into the way we think about socio-economic and political issues. Excuse me. This also, I know I'll probably get some comments afterwards, but it has to be said. When we started our discussion on identity, I mentioned a few different things about the way we think about the West versus Islamic ideology, things like that. Right? And some didn't agree, and that's okay. Some of the responses that I've gotten, I usually hear this a lot, and the pattern typically is that this response that I get usually comes from those who have emigrated from other countries, right? And it's what? It's that, okay, well, they say, Hassan, listen, yes, this country might have their issues, but we have peace here. We have security here. We can raise the flag of Imam Hussein alayhi salam here. We can go and have a julus, we can have a procession in the streets. Where, and the individual will say, where I'm from, I don't have that peace and security. Right? The economy is bad, or I might get killed for being Shia. They say all these different types of things. And it might be true. One thing is getting into comparative politics. As a political scientist, it's a dangerous path to go on. And I'll give you some reasons why it's very dangerous, especially to say security and peace and prosperity are the criteria for what determines what's a successful society from our perspective of our iman. Let me give a few examples. Let's say we live back in the time during the Imams. On one hand, we have the government of Imam Ali or Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Think about it. We know that there is corruption in their governments, unfortunately, right? Corruption is something unavoidable. We're fallible individuals. If we're installed in positions, there's going to be corruption. And we see in Nahj al-Balagha, Imam Ali alayhi salam writes letters telling people to, stop their corruption, stop taking money from people. In their governments, there was corruption. There wasn't peace, there was fighting going on. Why? Because of Muawiyah. But what was there in Muawiyah's government? There was peace. There was prosperity. It was a rich empire he had. It was a rich government he had in Sham. Now think about it. Would we apply that same criteria that we've said before to this if we lived in that time? Where would you rather live? During a kind of chaotic, corrupt, for example, Imam Ali alayhi salam's government or Imam Hassan alayhi salam's government? Or would we have said, listen, there's peace and prosperity and order in Muawiyah's government? I don't know. Think about that. Think about the time of the Abbasids. The Abbasids, what? They built a lot of masajid. They built universities, right? In terms of the academic way, the way the academicians look and Islamic scholars look at the Islamic history, if they're non-Muslim, obviously, or if they're from other schools of thought. The way they say that, yeah, Islam prospered then. But what do we see? Like, no, there was, Shias were being slaughtered, right? We were being oppressed during all those times. But from a very peace angle, from a prosperity angle, it was a rich empire, and they were building, and there was a lot of education. So again, is that going to be our criteria? And think about, very simply, what are we here for? Yazid versus Imam Hussein. I hear a lot of people mentioning that we need to share the message of Imam Hussein to other individuals. Okay, I'm not going to say if I'm for or against that. Just a question for us to think about. If we're going to tell people that Imam Hussein stands up for justice, which of course he did. He stands up for liberty, he stands up for rights, all of that he did. So what's going to be a typical response that somebody who's non-Muslim will give? They'll say, okay, well, what was so bad about Yazid? So, well, he drank. Okay, is that the answer we're going to give to a non-Muslim? They'll say, okay, well, I'm a Christian, I can drink. I'm a Jew, I can drink. I'm an atheist, I can drink. What's so wrong about that? Well, he played chess. Okay, chess is a great game. And also, a lot of our Maraji allow chess, so that's not a great argument either. He played with animals, like he played with monkeys. Okay, so Obama has a dog, what's your point? You see how sometimes the reasoning that we have might crumble when we're trying to share with other individuals? Again, I'm not making a decision whether we should be spreading the message or not. I'm saying sometimes the reasoning we might use might be faulty. Somebody again might say, hold on, so Yazid was the ruler of that time, right? Yes. Ipso de facto ruler, yes, technically he was. And Imam Hussein rose up against that. Yes, he did. So wasn't he causing a sedition or a problem? Wasn't he causing rebellion this was the argument other people bring, right? He was causing a problem, right? He made people, right? People wrote letters to him in Kufa, called him to come and rise up, to have a revolution. That's what he wanted. Somebody might say, listen, so the person who was causing all the problems was, Hussein, not Yazid. Yazid was running a nice, peaceful government. There was peace, there was prosperity, there was money. Yeah, there was some corruption or whatever, but nobody was getting killed. Like, what was the issue? The reasoning that we use, we have to watch because it might not be used back then. And if somebody knows history better than we do, they're going to use that against us. Right? So we have to make sure we understand the way that we think about history in both a political way, an economic way, and a social way. These lenses have to be corrected. Again, this is why I'm stressing this point about identity over and over and over again. The typical way we've learned the movement of Karbala, of Ashura, of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was fine for a certain time. And we could have used that against certain individuals. But in this society right now, we need to do better. We have to look deeper. We need to do more research, ask deeper questions. That is one of the benefits of being in a country, in a society like this, right? Because we're encouraged now to think more, to read deeply, to be curious. So that's something that we should encourage within all of us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. So now, this will end our discussion on what is success, right, in dunya and akhirah. To sum up is this: we talked about having a vision first, right? If you want falah, if you want success, if you want to be like that farmer, first thing is to have a clear vision. What's our vision? What's our goal? What are we looking for? On one level, we're looking for heaven, fine. On a deeper level, we're looking to get close to Allah. Okay. How do we do that? Then we get close to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. How do we get close to him? Close to his companions. Follow the way that they followed him. That's what we figured out. The first step to doing that is to clear out any sort of materialistic thinking in our minds and our hearts and make sure that we don't transfer this to our children specifically. And for the youth who are there, to make sure that in your lives too, you don't think this way, right? And as parents and children, work together to clear that out of the household. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Okay, so ayat 1, for our intents and purposes, will be finished. Let's move on to ayah number 2 of Surah Mu'minun. So the first was قَدْ أَفْلَحَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. And now second is الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Okay. So now Allah has stated first that, okay, if you want to be successful, definitely, 100%, you need to be a mu'min, الَّذِينَ. And then he starts mentioning all these different characteristics, all these different sifat that you need to have. First one is الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. People who, in their salat, they're khashir. They have khushu, they have humility. So for today, possibly if we don't finish today, tomorrow, we're going to be discussing this idea of how to have khushu, how to have humility in your prayers. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. One point that should strike us right off the bat. Many times in the Quran, Allah's talking about aqam as-salah, right? Establishing prayer. Right? We, aqam as-salah, ma'tu zakat, etc., etc. Aqim as-salah. Over here, he's saying something different, right? He's saying, fi salatihim, hum fi salatihim khashi'un. He's already given you a prerequisite. He's like, hold on, in your salats that you should already have been doing. Right? So that's already cutting out a certain group, right? Okay, maybe a person once in a while prays. Allah's saying, listen, I'm not talking about a certain person who just prays. This is something that's a bit at a higher level now. In their salat, they're doing something different. So the first thing in our minds is, if we haven't gotten that established step of putting prayers and making it a rukun and a part and parcel of our lives every single day, meaning waking up on time for Fajr, hopefully at our workplaces, or if we can at school to pray Dhuhr and Asr if possible. When we get home, if we get home, let's say closer to Maghrib, Isha time, even if we're tired, even if we're hungry, to make sure that we try our best to pray at awwal al-waqt, on time, right? Never letting our prayers become qada and delayed. So that's a prerequisite. Allah's like, okay, if I'm addressing you here as being a definite, successful mu'min, I'm assuming that you're already doing your prayers. But that prayer that you're doing, I need you to change it a little bit. I need you to increase it and improve it a little bit. How? With khushu, with humility. Okay. So what is Allah saying? He's like, okay, not just your physical actions, your heart needs to be there too. Now, let me give us an example. There's many times in our lives when we say something or we do something, and it's very, very clear that what we're saying or doing, there's no sincerity, there's no humility, there's no heart in it whatsoever. A typical example. Let's say a child does something wrong, right? Your son or daughter, they do something wrong. They break something or they get in a fight with their brother or sister, yeah? Then what happens is, you break up the fight or whatever happens. You take them and what do you tell them? Okay, now say sorry to your brother or say sorry to your sister or say sorry to your mother, say sorry to your father. Now, there's two different ways they're going to do it. One way is like, yeah, sorry. Right? Or yeah, sorry. Something like that. Obviously, by the way I'm saying it, you know that. You know that. They know it. There's no sincerity. They're just saying it to get you off their back. Like, okay, I'm saying sorry. That's what you wanted. I said it. And then what do you say? No. You have to really mean it. All of a sudden it's like, okay, sorry. Like they're gonna like change the way that they're saying it to make it feel like it's sincere all of a sudden. No, something in their heart feels like they've been done an injustice, so there can't be any sincerity in the way they're apologizing, right? They feel like they've been wronged, right? Something's being done unfairly. It's tough to force somebody to be sincere. It's tough to force them to be humble. Humility has to come from within, right? And that's what we'll get to, inshallah. So both that child and both the parent, we know when something's sincere. You know when something has khushu and humility in it. So first thing is to be honest with ourselves and not to play games with Allah. That's what we have to realize. So now think about our prayers. The way we offer them, is it the same way that our child or that our brother or sister or cousin, whatever, offers that fake apology? Is that the same way we do it? Now think about it. Now, I don't mean to make fun of anybody, but I have to give an example, obviously. Sometimes examples are like this. I've seen and heard people when they're praying, like, Allah like that. Like literally, it's like a zombie prayer, right? Although technically zombies would probably pray a bit slower than that, right? Yeah. It's pretty bad. I don't know what kind of khushu, I don't know what a person can get from that kind of prayer, right? And I know sometimes we get tired, sometimes there's other things on our mind. Once in a while, our prayer might be like that. But again, we're trying now to figure out how to improve our lives, how to improve our prayers firstly, so that we get what? Khushu and humility, so that it leads us to have successful iman. Okay. Two discussions we're going to have now is what does khushu actually mean? And then once we figure out what it means, then okay, well, how do we actually become humble then? Right? It's one of those fancy terms we hear all the time. Taqwa and iman and khushu and hudur al-qalb. You know, all these fancy terms we hear in all these different majalis. People are like, yeah, okay, just be humble. Like, okay, I know what it kind of means, but how do I do it? And people always ask for something practical. Inshallah, we'll get to that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Khushu, humility, humbleness, lowliness, shamefulness, debasement, whatever word you want to use, doesn't matter. What does it really mean? It means when somebody puts themselves in a state where they're lowering themselves, they shame themselves, they put themselves down, physically and spiritually, in front of somebody or something else that's more important, and something that's bigger or better or greater or grander than them. Yeah? This is a very obvious definition for us, okay? So think about it. How does our behavior change when we're in front of certain other types of individuals? Give some examples. The way that sometimes, if you're with your friends or people who are your same age, you'll act one way. But the minute, let's say, your parent comes or a grandparent comes, then your demeanor, the way you think, the way you act, the way you speak changes a little bit, right? There's a bit more respect in the way you're talking, and the way that you stand, the way that you sit, the way you keep your hands. Everything about you changes, yeah? Think about you're talking to one of your coworkers, that's one thing. But the minute the boss walks in the room, then you're talking a little bit different, right? Or the minute the CEO walks in, then it's a whole different ballgame. If any of you have ever gotten pulled over by a cop, obviously, yes sir, yes ma'am, etc., etc. All right, you want to make sure you're as nice as possible so you don't get a ticket. Why are you shaking your head? You're not a driver. I'm kidding. No, the kids are shaking their head like, yeah, I've been pulled over before. I don't know, that's scary if you got pulled over before. Are you driving already? No, okay. You're just saying yes to make me feel good. I'm good. Thank you. I like that. Or if you get that ticket, unfortunately, you go in front of the judge. How are you going to act in front of the judge? Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Holy Eminence, whatever you want to call the judge. This and that, right? Yeah. Okay. First thing we have to keep in mind is that there's a connection between the physical and the spiritual, between our bodies and our hearts. Humbleness is something that starts internally. It starts with the way we think, with the way we feel, and then it turns into physical actions. So let me give some examples. Once Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saw somebody praying, and while this person was praying, he was playing with his beard, right? He had a nice beard like I did, right? So he's messing around with it like this, right? I use beard cream, right? So it's nice. It's nice and soft. You have to use some beard cream. See, I'm giving you practical tips for beards now too. If you want to make sure your beard is nice and soft, you need beard cream, right? Olive oil. Okay, let me not get into that. Sorry, it's another. Inshallah, we'll have another lecture for that. Anyway, okay. So he sees this guy, right? Probably a guy. I'm assuming it's a guy playing with his beard. Playing with his beard. He turns to the other companions and he says, "Amma innahu law khasha'a qalbuhu la khasha'at jawarihuhu." Because if this guy, I'm paraphrasing in common English, right? I don't use Shakespearean English when I translate hadith, so I apologize for that. It's like, if this person had any sort of humility in his heart, then the way that his body acted, his limbs would also be humble too. Meaning what? If this person had humbleness in his heart when he was praying, he wouldn't be messing around like this. He wouldn't be tapping his hands like this. He wouldn't be scratching his head or playing with his phone or checking his wallet or any of these things. So one practical advice that we'll mention also is going to be regarding this. Another point which is really interesting. When this verse of Surah Mu'minun was revealed, الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. This verse was so powerful that it even changed the Prophet's behavior of his prayers. That's something really amazing. So what some of the Mufassirin say is that before this verse came down, when the Prophet used to offer his salah, every once in a while he would look up to the sky, right? It makes sense, right? Okay, Allah's not up there, but out of like the awe and humility, you just kind of look up at Allah like, wow, it's like amazing. And we do that sometimes too. When we make dua, you kind of just look up. So he was doing that in his prayers. After this verse was revealed, he realized that no, humility means something else. So ever since then, he began looking downwards and never looked up again in his prayers. Again, another point that we'll remind about this. After this verse, he never once again raised his prayers. He always kept his head down. All right, a point for us to remember. Okay, now the practical tips. How do we become humble in our prayers? Right, we have the basic ideas in our mind of humility. Okay, now how do we actually do it? Step one. You got to know who Allah is. You have to recognize Allah. Go back to this discussion we had 3 years ago, right? I know it's really, really tough, but it's okay. Is she okay? She's okay. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. See, she fell down and humbled herself. That was so nice. She's okay? Yeah, okay. Alhamdulillah. Now, when we say know Allah, it's just like we had mentioned in our series 3 years ago, from Muslim to Mu'min, afdalu iman husnu iqan, as Imam said. You got to be certain about Allah. You have to understand who you're talking to, right? Otherwise, your prayer is not going to make sense. You don't believe in Allah, who are you talking to in the first place? Right? Why are you standing there in front of somebody you don't believe in? It's going to be very tough. One of our Mufassirin has a very interesting line, pretty harsh actually. He says, "As-salat biduni yaqeen laysat bishay." If you're offering prayer without yaqeen, without really understanding Allah, laysat bishay. It's like it's nothing, man. Like, what are you doing? Almost like you're wasting your time. Right? Yeah, there's a pretty weak exercise, but yeah, at least your heart rate gets going a little bit. It's pretty terrible. We have another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is even harsher, I think. It says, "Nawmun ala al-yaqeen khayrun min salat ma'a shak or ala shak." Sleeping while you're sure about, and in parentheses, Allah. Sleeping while you're sure about Allah is better than praying when you have doubts about Allah. Now, I'm not encouraging people to go and sleep and say, I'm not going to pray, I'm going to sleep now. But this is a very interesting point. We're encouraging this idea of getting your aqaid, getting your theology strengthened. Hopefully it was strengthened 3 years ago when we talked about it, or when you've had other ulama come and address that. If not, then definitely this is something that we need to strengthen. Any issues that are left in your mind, make sure that you go ahead and solve them. There is no taboo issue in Islam. There's no taboo issues at all. If you're like, I don't know, why can't there be two gods, right? It's something that exists in my mind. Don't yell at anybody, don't go crazy, don't what's wrong with you, you kafir, you muqassir. No. If they have a question, let's answer them, right? Why is it that the imams have to be masoom? Oh, let's kill this guy. No, we're not Daesh, that's not how we act. When somebody asks a question, we're the madhab, we're the deen that's a logical deen. So you know what, there's a logical answer for that. I might not know it. I'm humble enough to say I don't know. We can find that answer. Either we research it, ask a scholar, email somebody, whatever, we'll find it out. If not, then the next time a scholar comes, we'll ask. Keep these things, write them down, and humble yourself. The second step is, we said first step is know Allah. The second step is to know thyself. You got to know yourself too. And what does that mean? That, inshallah, we're going to start with tomorrow night, and as well as one or maybe two more steps, and then we'll end the discussion on humility. And then from that, then we'll move on to the next ayah of Surah Mu'minun. Sallu ala Muhammad wa one more salawat ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. The way Salat, when it becomes kind of a robotic habit into us, and it doesn't affect our heart, it doesn't affect our behavior, it does affect it no matter what, but instead it would have a negative effect, right? Sometimes spirituality, living in this life, we think it's like, okay, we're standing in one spot. If I do something good, then I'll improve and I go forward. And if I do something bad, then I move back, right? So I just got to improve myself. In fact, one of our scholars changes the analogy. He says, actually, your life here, your spiritual improvement is more like being on an escalator. But not an escalator that's going up. It's an escalator that's going down. Or think about it like a really long treadmill. If you stand still, you're not improving, you're digressing, you're degenerating, you're getting worse and worse and worse. Allah, the Ahlul Bayt, demand from us improvement in every single moment. Yes, it's tough. But the fact that if you can keep the niyat of improvement every single moment, that'll be a first step and that's enough. That's why these points are so crucial for us to remember. First part of the lecture, that we hear these points, which we learn something new maybe, we get tadakkur, we remind ourselves of what to do, and then the Masa'ib connects that for us. Like, okay, my mind understands one thing, I connect it to my heart, and then when I leave, it should offer some change. Right? At least in my thinking, hopefully in my heart, and then hopefully in my actions as well. People who get upset, I've seen this happen a lot of times unfortunately, they get upset when children make noise during prayer. And I'm 100% against this. Again, go back to the examples we have. Okay, if you lose your concentration in prayer, okay, what's the problem? What happened when Rasulullah used to pray and Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein used to come and jump on his back in sujood? Did he ever tell, Na'udhu Billah, Imam Ali or Bibi Fatima, get these kids out of here, Na'udhu Billah, or take them home? No. He let them sit on his back and he prolonged the sujood. And this became a way for people to understand who they are. One, understand the personalities of Imam Hussein and Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and at the same time understand that children should never get us to mess our akhlaq up like this. They should never let us miss the mark of what we should be improving in our lives. Salat is a place where we should be focused on Allah. If we're going to be focused on Allah wholeheartedly and submitting ourselves and being humble, if a child's cry or scream or slap or whatever it is messes us up, then what are we really focusing on? We're more intent on keeping ourselves focused rather than turning back towards Allah. And about concentration, we'll mention that inshallah tomorrow as well. The masjid, the mimbar, the janamas, all these places where people back at that time came to know who the different personalities were, how to act when it comes to the Ahlul Bayt, how to really be a successful moment. One day, Rasulullah saw some children playing outside. He was sitting on the mimbar giving a lecture. Some children were playing outside. He told the companions, he said, that child over there, bring him to me. He said, who is that? He's like, that's the son of Mudahir, bring him to me. So he grabbed the son of Mudahir and brings it to him. He hugs him, he kisses him. He's just showing him a lot of affection. The Sahaba were kind of confused, like, what's so special about this boy? Why are you showing him so much affection? Why the special treatment of this son of Mudahir? He said, you didn't see what I saw him do. When Hussein was taking his steps one by one, Habib was going behind him, taking those clumps of dirt and dumping it on his head. Habib, according to some narrations, was older than Imam Hussein. Somebody to show ihtiram to somebody younger than you, something very tough. That takes humility. That takes recognition and ma'rifat of who Hussein was. Sometimes the way that we view other people's muhabbat and love for Ahlul Bayt, it's unfortunate, right? We say, oh, this person shouldn't be, for example, kissing flags or kissing a bari, or what they're doing is backwards. Are you going to call Habib ibn Mudahir backwards for taking dirt and putting it on his head? He's expressing his love. Rasulullah did ta'ayyid of this. He confirmed this. He expressed his love towards that. Who are we to judge anybody's love for Ahlul Bayt? Whether they decide to kiss a flag or not kiss a flag, whether they do matam slow or fast. If a culture, if the way they do matam or recite poetry or love the Ahlul Bayt is within the confines of the Sharia, who are we to judge? Never let the love of Ahlul Bayt be a reason for us to divide our communities. Rasulullah says, this boy is truly the Habib of my Hussein. He's truly a friend to my Hussein. And this is how the two grew up together. They were close friends throughout their time together. Can you imagine the love that Habib had for Imam Hussein? On the 3rd of Muharram, Umar ibn Sa'd la'anatullah alayh, he came with an army from Kufa and then had arrived in Karbala. Then from that 3rd night onwards, every day, a new commander, a new general would come with a flag and with a new regiment of troops. For example, Hurmala would come with 2,000 to 3,000 troops, and they'd come. Shimr would come with 2,000 to 3,000 troops, and then increase. Every day would increase like this until they reached that number that we know of about 30,000 men, according to some, sometimes even more. When they did this, they were ordered by those commanders, said, those women and children who are sitting in those tents, we want to strike fear into their hearts. As you're getting closer and closer, gallop your horses more intensely. Make your horses make noise so that these children start crying and these women get afraid. This is the disgusting nature of the hearts of these individuals. So this would happen, the women and children would get frightened and they would begin to cry. At one point, al-Masa'ib, our Zainab, came to Hussein and said, Ya Akhi Hussein, my brother Hussein, look at the status, look at what's happening to us now. Don't you have a friend, don't you have a Habib who can come and save us and put some love and happiness back into this camp, back into this army? And Imam said, yes, I have a Habib. Imam writes a letter. He sends it to Habib, who was at that time in Kufa. And you know the status of Kufa. It was in curfew. Ibn Ziyad had put this in a state of fear. Everybody was in a state of fear, right? It was martial law. Somebody comes, knocks on his door. He says, who is it? It's Ana Barid Hussein. I'm a messenger from Hussein. The minute he hears this, he goes running to the door. He grabs that letter. He smells the letter. He kisses the letter. This is, again, love of Habib for Hussein. Even the letter, the handwriting of Hussein. And he begins crying. He opens it up. He says, the son of Zahra has remembered me, my childhood friend, remember somebody like me. What does this letter say? Min Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Min Hussein ibn Ali ila rajul al-faqih. The respect Hussein has for Habib. He says, rajul al-faqih, this knowledgeable individual. Habib, he tells him, we've been surrounded. We need your help. Come to us, save us. Al-ajal, al-ajal, ya Habib. Habib begins crying. He says, I've left my master in this kind of state. What to do? His wife comes to him and says, Ya Habib, why are you crying? What's happened? He says, I received a letter from my Mawla Hussein. Hussein's asking for my help. What do I do? He's been surrounded. So his wife asks, Habib, what are you thinking? What do you want to do? What should we do? He says, well, I'm thinking about you, he says to his wife. I'm thinking about you. What would become of you if I leave? And she says, Habib, how dare you? The son of Zahra is in trouble and you're thinking about me? If you're not going, give me your sword, give me your horse, I'll go and defend the son of Zahra. Habib says, I was just testing you. I wasn't sure because some people right now are afraid of Ibn Ziyad. But now that I know that you're a true Muhib and Shia of Hussein, now I know. I have your ijazah, now I'm going to go fight for Imam Hussein. At this time, in Karbala, Imam Hussein was busy making banners, making alam for all the different individuals. There was 12 in total, they say he made. Everyone had their own. Ali al-Akbar had his own flag, his banner. Abbas had his own. Qasim had his own. Aun had his own. Muhammad had his own. Everybody got their own. But there was one, a 12th one, which was put to the side. Everybody kept asking, Ya Hussein, Ya Mawla, who is this one for? He says, I have a special Habib who's coming. This one is for him. Don't worry, you'll see what happens when my Habib comes. Finally, when they heard a horse coming, they looked outside, they saw, who is this? They said that Habib ibn Mubahir has come to save us. He's come. Habib al-Hussein has come to us. There was joy, there was jubilance, there was happiness inside the camp now. When Bibi Zainab heard all this, she said, what's going on? She told her Fidda. She said, what's happening? Find out. Fidda went outside, did research. She came back to Zainab and said, oh my master Zainab, Habib has come. This is why everybody's so happy. She says, Habib has come, the Habib of my brother Hussein. Send my salams to him. Fidda comes back to Habib and says, my master Zainab sends salam to you. Habib begins slapping him, so he takes his amama off his head and throws it on the floor. He says, Ya Allah, what's happened to the Ahlul Bayt? What's happened to the house of Zahra? What's happened to the Haram of Rasulullah that they're in this kind of state? Who has brought the Haram of Rasulullah to a place like this? Ya Allah, what state am I in? Who am I to receive salam from somebody like Princess Zainab? Who am I? On the day of Ashura, the time of Dhuhr comes. Habib tells his Mawla Hussein, Ya Mawla, I wish to pray my Salat al-Dhuhr in Jannah. Please give me a ijazah and send me out. First Hussein says, Habib, you are my close companion, my friend. I can't send you out. I need somebody to comfort me. When everyone else goes and becomes shaheed, I need you to console me. if you go out, who will console me? He asked again and again, and finally Imam gave ijazah. Habib went out, he did his battle, he killed 62 of the enemies. But he was an old man. They said he was 75 years old. Imagine somebody who's been strengthened by the love of Hussein at 75 fighting enemies like this. One of the enemies strikes him down. They take him off of his horse. One, he's down on the floor. He gets knocked with the spear again. He tries to get up. He gets hit with the spear on the head again. He turns his head to the tents, turns to his mawla and says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah adrikni. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, this is the final thing. And then Arjukum ala Allah. You know that after Karbala, after it was done at Sham al-Ghariba, the heads were cut and put on spears and were taken. But for Habib, something was different. They didn't put his head on a spear. Umar ibn Sa'ad ordered that his head be attached to a chain, attached to a horse, and be dragged through the streets of Kufa. Do you know that Habib had one son left in Kufa before he had gone? A son named Qasim. When the women and children were being paraded through Kufa, when Qasim found out, he came outside. He said, what's going on here? And he saw the different heads on the spears. He saw the women, he saw the children, and then he saw a horse attached with a chain with the head of his father. And he said, why is my father's head being attached like this? What's happening? So he took some of his friends. He fought that one soldier who had the head and took the head back. When he took that head back, he began complaining to the head. He says, what, Ya Allah, is it fair for a young son like me to see his father's head in a state like this? We would say to Qasim ibn Habib, we'd say to him, Qasim, watch your tone, watch what you say. Imam Sajjad is behind you. Imam Sajjad is in chains. Imam Sajjad is walking behind the head of his father all this time from Karbala to Kufa. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. Ya Allah, we ask you by the right of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad to forgive all mu'mineen, mu'minat, Muslimin, Muslimat, and all of the oppression throughout the world. Open our hearts to the love of Hussein, the love of all Ahlul Bayt, to the love of Shuhada. Ya Allah, we ask you by the right, the haqq, by the shafa'ah of Habib ibn Mudahir, someone who in his old age was still able to give his health, his wealth, everything, to give up his family, everything for the sake of Islam. We ask you, when we reach our old age, to make us like him. And we ask you in this age that we're at now, to make us that same. Just the same way that he had love for Hussein. To make sure that our love for Hussein is never confined by anything. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. ناطق Hussein.
Hi Abbas, hi Abbas, जलते ख़ैमों से सदाई सरे गर्बो बला हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास तन्हा 18 बरादर की बहन है बंद में नींद क्यों आ गई है भाई बताओ रन में नींद से जाग उछनी से लब मुज़तर की रिदा हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास मेरे गाज़ी मेरे सफदर मेरे मीरे लश्कर देखो बेआस है परदेस में तेरी बाहर कट गया सिबते पयंबर कभी सजदे में गला हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास हाय अब्बास मैंने कर दी हुई लाशें पे चली आऊंगी کتنے ناسور کلیجے میں دکھلاؤں گی میری تقدیر میں کچھ بھی نہیں اشکوں کے سوا آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس میرا اکبر میرا قاسم میرا اصغر نہ رہا تو میرے لال تھے دونوں میں سے کوئی نہ بچا نہ کوئی بھائی بھتیجا نہ کوئی ہے بیٹا آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس بھائیوں سے تو بڑی آس ہوا کرتی ہے ہر بہن بھائی کے حق میں یہ دعا کرتی ہے عمر لگ جائے میری زندہ رہے بھائی میرا آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس کہ اب کیا کروں اے بھائی تمہارے غم میں زندگی گزرے گی زینب کی تیرے ماتم میں مجھ کو تڑپائے گی اے بھائی تیری یاد صدا آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس خالی کو تیری بچے ہیں درے خیمہ پر ہوئے دریا ہے لگی باری سکینہ کی نظر کہتی ہے بچوں سے آتے ہیں ابھی میرے چچا آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس آئے عباس ہمارے ہاں یہ زینب کا تھا بادے عباس کیوں نہیں کرتے ہو عباس ہمارا احساس قافلہ سے سر و سامان سر شام چلا آئے عباس 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 آئے عباس
البكاء يا رغية البكاء يا رغية البكاء يا رغية البكاء يا رغية يا رغية البكاء يا رغية سال دختر سالار زینب سه سال دختر سالار زینب رقیه اولین غمخوار زینب به دستش جانماز سبز بابا نیامد از چه سوی خیمه بابا البکا یا رقیه البکا یا رقیه البکا یا رقیه البکا یا رقیه شر ظالم به رحمهای ممه که شر ظالم به رحمهای ممه ببین زخمی شده پاهای ممه به قصال بگو گر من کبودم اگر آتش گرفته تار پودم اگر آتش گرفته تار پودم البکا یا رقیه البکا یا رقیه البکا یا رقیه البکا یا رقیه غم بابا مرا نیلوفری کرد غم بابا مرا نیلوفری کرد در بابا برایم دلبری کرد در بابا برایم دلبری کرد شنیدم صوت قرآن پدر را شنیدم صوت قرآن پدر را ببر همه مدینه این خبر را ببر همه مدینه این خبر را یا رقیه ام البکا یا رقیه ام البکا یا رقیه ام البکا یا رقیه بلا دنیا به یک ارزن نیرزد بلا دنیا به یک ارزن نیرزد دعا کن تا دلی هرگز نلرزد دعا کن تا دلی هرگز نلرزد دعا کن خیمه ای آتش نگیرد دعا کن خیمه ای آتش نگیرد یتیمی که سر راهش نگیرد یتیمی که سر راهش نگیرد حسابم در قیامت یا حسین است حسابم در قیامت یا حسین است صدای قلب زینب یا حسین است صدای قلب زینب یا حسین است ام البکا یا رقیه ام البکا یا رقیه ام البکا یا رقیه
إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء ثم للمرتضى سيد الأوصياء إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء ثم للمرتضى سيد الأوصياء إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء للمرتضى سيد الأوصياء إن قلبي كوى في رباعي نوى فاض دم الجروح ليس فيها دواء موقف للحسين قد أهان الحنين وأثار الدموع بالأسى والأنين إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء سيد الأوصياء هيجوا خاطري صار جسمي ذبول لمصاب الحسين وهو غصن البتول فله دمعة أبدا لن تزول قد بكت في السماء بدموع الرسول إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء ثم للقضاء لا تلمني أخي إن بكيت دما فمصاب الحسين حرك الألما فله بالطفوف عبرة كلما قد سقوه السهام وهو يشكو الظما إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء المرتضى سيد الأنبياء لهف نفسي عليه قد قدى نحبه أي أرض بها ألموا قلبه بسيوف العناد مزقوا ثوبه وأحبوا يزيد ونسوا حبه إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء ثم للمرتضى للأوصياء ورضيع النبي قد بكى للإمام ضاميا بالفلا قد سقوه السهام وغدوا باللظى يحرقون الخيام لينام يزيد فوق ريح النعام يا ابني سيدي يا حسين يا إمام الورى دمك الطاهر سال فوق الثرى سيدي يا حسين يا إمام الورى دمك الطاهر سال فوق الثرى عذبوا زينبا بصياط السبيل ثم آذوا العلي وهو صدق النبي إن كل العزاء ثم للمرتضى سيد الأوصياء يا ابن آل الرسول هل سواك فجيع بالدماء والعيال والنساء والرضيع يا ابن آل الرسول سيدي يا حسين سوف نبكي عليك عبر مر السنين إن كل العزاء لرسول السماء ثم للمرتضى سيد الأوصياء يا حسين 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 يا حسين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين علي حجة الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر المنبيين، السلام عليك جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر القادم، السلام عليك علي بن موسى رضا، السلام عليك محمد بن علي الحادي، السلام عليك علي بن محمد السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي الزكي العسكري، السلام عليك يا صاحبي أسلم الزمان الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا مصدر الإيمان، السلام عليك إمام الزمان حاز عجل الله فرجك وسهل الله مخرجكم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
وبركاته.
هادري يا علي حسينيات حسينيات يزيديات يزيديات نار